Our commentator, she is a famous astronomer. We take you now to Jamesburg.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips, speaking to you from the Mir Observatory in Jamesburg, California. I am standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for the oblong split in the ceiling. Though through this opening I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through a giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see?
You need to be closer to your mic.
Would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now, because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth. In opposition, we call it.
In your opinion, what does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for those gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Mr. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance. Thank you. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Someone has just sent a text message to Professor Pearson. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Jamesburg, California, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has just shown me the text message. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, is it not coming across?
No, you have to get closer.
No, you have to be in on the mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read to you a text message addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. 3:15 Pacific Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Moss Landing. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory in Jamesburg, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our Big Sur studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News, Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of McGill University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 3:45 p.m. and 4:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special announcement from Salinas, California. It is reported that at 4:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Moss Landing, just a few miles from Salinas. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far south as Salinas. Should I change that to Paso? Something further.
Yeah.
We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and will have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a description as soon as he can reach there from Jamesburg. In the meantime, we take you to Sly McFly's in Monterey, where Bobby Millette and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Moss Landing, California.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again at the Moonglow Dairy in Moss Landing, California. Professor Pearson and myself made the 30 miles from Jamesburg, 10 minutes by helicopter.
What happened? Did you do something different?
I did not do anything different.
Okay, goes to the machine. We gotta figure that out.
Okay. Well, I hardly know where to begin. To paint for you a word picture of the strange scene before my eyes, like something out of the X-Files. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree. It must have struck on its way down. What I can see of the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge orange metallic cylinder. It has the diameter of... What would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What would you say? What is the diameter?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath is, well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is impossibly orange. Curious spectators are now pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side, please?
One side there, one side. One side.
While the sheriff's deputies are pushing the crowd back, here's Mr. Lou Calcogno, the owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Calcogno, would you please tell our radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Calcogno.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Oh, pardon me?
Louder, please, and closer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsing. That professor fellow, he was talking about Mars, so I was half dozing and just half lazy.
Yes, Mr. Calcogno. But then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio kind of halfways. And,
yes, Mr. Calcogno. And then you saw something?
No, not first off. No, I heard something.
And what did you hear?
I heard a hissing sound. Like it's like this, like kind of like a 4th of July rocket.
Then what?
Well, turned my head out the window, and hey, here, I would have swore I was asleep to dreaming.
Yes?
Yeah, I seen a kind of orangish streak, and then zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out my chair.
Were you frightened, Mr. Calcogno?
Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled.
Thank you, Mr. Calcogno. Thank you.
Yeah, you want me to tell you some more?
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty.
Oh, all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from Mr. Calcogno, owner of the Moonglow Dairy, where this orange object has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere. The background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field. Everybody wants to see the orange object and get closer to it. Police are trying to rope off the roadway leading to the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Cars' headlights throw an enormous spot on the pit where the object's half buried. Some of the more daring souls are now venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the orange metal sheen. There's a faint humming sound here. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with the deputy. The deputy wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but now it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen. Do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound, and it seems to be coming from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Oh, Professor Pearson.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I see. Do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth and, as you can see, of cylindrical shape.
Just a minute, something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw. The orange thing must be hollow.
The darn thing's unscrewing.
Maybe they're trying to escape.
Keep back. Keep back, I tell you. It's red hot. They'll burn to a cinder. Keep those idiots back.
She's off. The top's loose. The top's loose. Look out.
She's off. The top's loose.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling out of the hollow top. Someone or something. I can see peering out of that black hole 2 luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one and another. They look like tentacles to me. There, I can see the thing's body. It's large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But that face, ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. The eyes are black and gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by gravity. The thing's raising up. The crowd falls back now. They've seen plenty. This is the most extraordinary experience. I can't find words. I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I have to stop the description until I can take a new position.
An eyewitness account of what's happening on the Moonglow Dairy Farm. Return you to Carl Phillips at Mossland.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Calcogno's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk, as long as I can see. More deputies have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit, about 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they parted. The professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and 2 policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. A flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means, wait, something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Good Lord, they're turning into flame. Now the whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way, about 20 yards to my right.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Moonglow Dairy. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a meeting of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars
is a demonstration
were
of
undoubtedly nothing more
Wirecast.
than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We now continue with our piano interlude.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been handed a message that is coming in from Moss Landing by telephone. Just a moment. At least 40 people,
This
including
is a demonstration
6 sheriff's
of
deputies,
Wirecast.
lie dead in a field east of the village of Moss Landing. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you will hear will be that of Monterey County Sheriff Steve Bernal.
I have been requested by Governor Brown to place the counties of Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass
This is a
issued by
demonstration
law
of
enforcement
Wirecast.
or military authorities.
Wait, just one question. Just one question.
Mr. Bernal, Mr. Bernal, over here.
You have just been listening to Monterey County Sheriff Steve Bernal. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Moss Landing are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back into their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. Combined
This is
fire
a
departments in
demonstration
Monterey
of
County
Wirecast.
are fighting the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Moss Landing, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson
is a
has been
demonstration
located
of
at a farmhouse
Wirecast.
near Moss Landing, where she has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, she will give you her explanation of the calamity. The next voice you will hear will be that of Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the orange rocket cylinder at Moss Landing, I can give you no authoritative information, either as to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth.
We have a special statement from Vice President in charge of operations for Columbia Broadcasting System.
We have received a request from the newly formed militia at Salinas to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Salinas.
Wait, one second.
McDonald, over here. Over here, tentacles.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Salinas, California.
Sorry.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the Army and units now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Moss Landing. The situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. It almost looks like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Elkhorn Slough, probably fire started by illegal campers. Well, we're out to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it will all be over. Wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Calgano farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an orange metal tube. Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal, or is it Teflon? Kind of shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. Oh my God, it's standing on legs! Actually rearing up on a sort of hulking metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the California farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Moss Landing has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by any army in modern times. 7,000 men, armed with rifles and machine guns, pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Moss Landing to Salinas, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of much of Central California and has effectively cut the state through its center. Cell phone towers are down throughout the region. All the roads that haven't been torn up are clogged with traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. At this time, martial law prevails throughout most of Central California. We now take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and the property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a small part of a blue state, and we must place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and concentrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
Wait, one question. How
Mr. Zinke, over here.
You don't even know how many
Please,
testicles
one
I have.
question.
I don't even know what's going on.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, speaking from Washington. Emails too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. Here is a special one from New York. Others have been received from English, French, German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on planet Mars. Majority voice opinion that enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. Attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Jamesburg, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in recent battle. Carmel Valley, California. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving south toward Big Sur, with hundreds fleeing ahead of them. Heat ray not in use. Although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making conscious effort to destroy as many trees as possible, and they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and cell phone and radio towers. Their apparent objective is to crush the resistance, paralyze its communications, and disorganize American society. Here's a bulletin from Carmel Valley. Fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying south in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep speeding, enemy in sight. Just a moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we've run special wires to this voluntary artillery line in Palo, Colorado to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire!
140 yards to the right, sir.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
I'm old. Fire!
Hot damn, we got the tripod, one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range, 37 meters.
37 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire!
Can't see the shell land. They're letting off a smoke.
What is it?
A black smoke, something moving this way, lying close to the ground. It's moving fast.
Put on gas mask. Get ready to fire. Shift 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire!
Still can't see. The smoke's coming clear.
Get the range.
23 degrees.
23 meters.
23 meters.
Projection, 22 degrees. 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-8439er off Rocky Point, Big Sur. Lieutenant Vaught, commanding 8 bombers. Reported to Commander Fairfax, Fort Hunter Liggett. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from Orange Moss Landing Cylinder. 6 altogether. Break. 1 machine already crippled. Break. Believed hit by shell from Army gun. Break. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog hanging close to the earth. Of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy pushes south, crossing the Little Sur River. Evident objective is the Henry Miller Library, capital of the resistance. They're starting to pull down the Bixby Bridge. The machines are close together now and are ready to attack. Break. Planes circling, ready to strike. Break. 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards and we'll be over the first. 800 yards. 600 yards. 400 yards. 200 yards. There they go. The giant arm raised. Green flash. They're spraying us with flames. 2,000 feet. Engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8.
This is the Presidio of Monterey calling Fort Hunter Liggett. This is the Presidio of Monterey calling Fort Hunter Liggett. Come in, please.
This is Fort Hunter Liggett. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Bixby Creek. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Salinas, California. This is Salinas, California. Warning, poisonous black smoke pouring from local wetland marshes. Reaches South Main Street. Gas mask useless. Urge population to get out of town as quickly as possible, but to follow traffic laws so there are no accidents. Smoke now spreading over Alisal Street.
2X, 2L, calling CQ. 2X, 2L, calling CQ. 2X, 2L, calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R. Coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay, please. Where are you? 8X3R. What's the matter? Where are you?
From the top, oh, I forgot my binoculars. Hold on. For the live audience, I'm speaking from the top of Ventana Inn in Big Sur. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate as the Martians approach. All communication with Palo, Colorado closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end, getting reports that enemy now in sight by Point Sur. Five great machines headed our way. This just in off the wire. That's not going to work. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside San Francisco, one in Los Angeles, Seattle, seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine comes into sight on Highway 1. He stands watching, looking over the forest and waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the highway behind him. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke, drifting over the forest. People in their cars see it now. They're mostly out of their cars now, running south toward the gorge, thousands of them dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Fernwood. People trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing the Big Sur River, Big Sur Station, the Big Sur Tap House.
2X2L, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. New York? Is there anyone on the air? Is there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X, 2L.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Henry Miller Memorial Library on the air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, performed by Search Ranch Players. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
As I set down these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living person on Earth. I have been hiding in this empty house near Moss Landing, a small stand of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life. A life that has no continuity with the present. Furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Roberta Pearson.
I look down at my I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I try to connect with the fisherman who lives in Moss Landing and who on the night of March 18 glimpsed an orange invader from a distant planet. My wife, my children, my family and friends, where are they? Did they ever exist? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks?
Morning. Sun streams the window. The black cloud of gas has lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road. No traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push on south. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I have seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the tops of trees, I am ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come to a mandarin tree. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days, I wander in a vague, southerly direction through a scorched, desolate wilderness. Finally, I notice a living creature. A small, red squirrel in an oak tree. I stare at him, and I wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment, the animal and I shared the same emotion. The joy of finding another living being.
After parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Pfeiffer Canyon Bridge. I crossed the span, anxious to know the fate of the great Henry Miller Library. I reached Post Ranch, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up. Down Highway 1, I stood alone on the deck of Nepenthe and watched a flock of blackbirds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine standing on Highway 1, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed to a better vantage point on this deck, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the highway, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their great steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. They had stopped just before the library. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there, before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Slain after all man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom put upon this earth.
Before the orange cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system through the inanimate vastness of space. But that is a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps.
Music, right? And then I'm waiting for her, or I speak first?
You speak after 10 seconds.
Okay.
So no music?
No music.
I think we should have music.
Okay.
The
Outro.
dramatic music. Dramatic?
I'm waiting for music and then I
The
start.
one that you played. Oh. The ethereal.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than a playful offering it was intended to be. Starting now, we could soap all of your windows and steal all of your garden gates by tomorrow night. So we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You'll be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that most institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember the terrible lesson you learned tonight. It was all fake news.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast have brought you The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Henry Miller Memorial Library on the air, performed by Search Ranch Players. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was awesome. What do we?
We missed a couple explosions.
I
but
think.
yeah.
Well, so the.
Everyone quiet and listen to Andy's quick notes.
Yeah.
Because we need to know what they heard and what they didn't hear.
So, like, generally speaking, everything went great. But sometimes, like, the biggest problem is when people aren't speaking directly into the mic. Mainly Blake and Katie, honestly.
So speaking, I was trying to speak right to the edge.
I think you meant speaking it across the front of the mic. I'm not exactly sure, but whatever
Can we
you're
maybe
doing.
do a sound test afterwards?
We can.
Okay.
And then you, especially, the main problem with you is that, and Kevin and Emily, the other note is that Foley mic is the hottest one in the room.
Yeah.
And so any whispering you do, it picks it up really well.
Right.
Okay.
And
So-
yeah, we won't whisper.
And it's good, right? Because the Foley's coming through very nice.
Really well. I listened to it. Yeah,
it
really
sounds really
good.
good. But when he's speaking on the Foley mic and you're like a little bit away, like it sounds like it's weird because you guys are right next to each other.
Should we change the casting on that thing and have
No,
somebody else be the?
I think if you just spoke like just really speak into the microphone. We can do
Blake.
more than anyone else.
But my level was fine standing right here.
Yours was fine.
Okay, it was Blake for Steve.
It's funny, but you just
And then, how did the guitar and piano go?
The Colorado volunteer. It's like these two guys
Okay,
like.
because what about when the guitar plays and it's like
What I think is that we don't
So,
necessarily need this mic.
my only
here,
question
that I can put it behind the
was on the
wall,
explosion.
and then
That's what I'm speaking of.
Well, we
I liked it when it was uncoiled, but do you feel like it was too loud?
I mean the guns.
Yeah, when we had it
couldn't have
uncoiled.
uncoiled it without it being extremely
That's
loud
true.
mic, so it didn't. Like,
it definitely would not be enough for the guitar. Like I'm almost.
What if
I'm
we
not
just went like
concerned about
this?
I'm just wondering for the piano because the guitar, I feel like we could have Gail step aside and point this mic right here.
ask Andy
Like,
how
I
that
can
sounds.
man that
Andy.
when I know Sam's playing, we can move this mic.
Yeah, I just think because it sounds good when it's like at least this close, maybe a little closer.
Okay. So we'll just need to make sure, Gail, when Sam's playing the guitar, you'll just need to step to the side. I'll move the mic down, and then I'll move it back up.
Or whoever's speaking right before him, just make sure you use that other mic.
So
Because these both work.
we missed the
Yeah.
explosion.
They're both good.
And as far as
Right.
the movement,
But
getting
I'm
sure
sure
of the
we'll
mic,
go
that
back to
seems
that part
me
in the
go
script.
super smoothly,
Yeah.
and I think
And
you
let's
need to
just
get out of the
mark
way
what we
just
need
to
to
hang out over
Yeah.
here in this
Yeah.
And I can do a little more directing in advance, like to make sure that the people have their mic, like mostly Andy and.
Because I think I would rather than take this mic away from the music.
Not the,
I'd
not
rather
the.
stand up.
You
and
mean the
just walk
battle
over there.
Okay.
explosion?
I think that's a
Yeah,
good
I
idea.
feel like there was like
Well, where
a lot
can
of
you
stuff
put
going on.
that
We had the
mic,
heat ray
though,
going
that
and
would
something
better
else, and
So
then we like
there's-
missed the
If it's
explosion.
Good
right
lord,
there,
well, there's
here's
the
and this
hissing.
part here.
I think the
It's one of
thrumming
the
and hissing
weaker
sound was
things
great.
in play right now.
Yeah.
So I
With
just
the
rather
drum.
like go.
Right.
This is
all
the
in
part
and
that we
like
missed,
those
though. I
well.
think where it was like.
And then
And then there's
have
the
it just
hissing
another
sound
voice.
pattern.
Yeah.
Oh well, this
But
is the
I'm
one we
thinking-
missed,
the
and I
only
just
thing I'm
dropped
saying is
that thing at
I'm wondering if
automobiles.
that mic there and this mic here is fixing.
No, there was something else though where I was like doing the
And
heat
it's
ray
not
and you were
very
doing something else, and I was like, ah, we should do an
Right.
explosion. Oh, maybe it was this one.
Yeah, because
We were
this
doing
is the
bio
first time
noises.
that
How about well, let's see. Here's bio noises.
That will work for me, right?
bio noises. There's bio noises for a while, and then and then we have all of this before
No,
the
it's just
heat ray comes
bio
on.
noises to here.
Right.
Put a mic down there, hang it.
Okay.
So I
And
think
then
it's
it's like
and then it's here is where we get
hissing and humming. Okay, so here's what
hissing
we
and
were doing.
humming.
We were like doing the humming and the fire, and then how about one of us does the humming and one of us does the explosion? How do you want to do that?
Well, we have. I think if we start the humming, hissing sound, which
The
is just
hissing is
the drum, and we just make it louder and faster.
The thing was all the people talking over each other. We didn't do that very well. I think just because we weren't at the
Oh,
mic.
sorry.
That's okay. And then, but then we also have to have an explosion at the end. Like we like
Right.
missed
So
the
we
big thing.
well the explosion's here.
Mhm.
So we go hum 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 hum, and then he says a hump shape is rising out of the pit. I can make a small beam of light against a mirror. That's when the death ray turns on.
Okay, so we gotta write that down.
Yeah, I missed that too.
And then death ray and then drop. So I'll do death ray and you do the drop.
I'll do the explosion. Yeah.
Can allow people to change stuff.
Do we want the loose metal explosion, or this explosion, or the bucket explosion? Wait, you'll be using this for the death ray.
Yeah, so I think for the explosion,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Okay.
What do you think? Or
That the piano
What
is cut and then they go to the like the piano.
Coil.
Yeah, so the piano I think should be cut.
do you want to put that on top of this and then drop it? Here, put that whole coil up here. Oh, that's good. Okay, so you do that and I'll do the death ray.
Yeah, I'll
So-
do that.
So keep that over here with you.
I can do that. I mean,
Yeah, you're right. And then we can keep it uncoiled for the gun part. Because, like, once.
Right.
Let's just have it uncoiled, right?
Yeah, or we could put it right here. Uncoil on the bucket. No, never mind. How do we
Here, wait. Let's see what it sounds like when we uncoil it. So just drop it.
You do your own radio test?
That can be the explosion. It's just the
Yeah,
dropping
just
of it.
dropping it.
And then we hold it. We just can't make any noise with it for a while. Then we go.
And then.
Oh, sorry, doggy. Oh, that's not a fun
Last
sound.
time we did the big gun, I think with this thing on here for their scene was the best and the loudest.
With it coiled? It was coiled.
It was
coiled halfway.
Yeah, you're
because the gun I think needs to be a little louder.
It was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
coiled like just a little bit.
Well, it was like when I had it like that, it was coiled. I was holding the outside, but it was uncoiled in the middle, like this. Like. No, it sounded like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be better.
I liked how you just did it.
Yeah. So that was.
Those are good. It's just the last one was definitely.
So maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
like.
is there a way that we can fix this? I mean, it's just gonna be really loud.
And
So
we don't want to.
just
Why don't we do this? Why don't we tape this coil like that, right?
Okay.
And then we'll have a place to hang it. And this can be the alien explosion. This can be the gun explosion.
It's not so much different though.
You're right.
But that's okay.
That's okay. It's going to be in a different context, and so I
Right.
think it will sound different.
So why don't we tape it together? And we can.
I think this could be the explosion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then this could be the gun.
Yeah.
It's the same, but whatever.
No, it's different.
Okay, so you're taping this together?
I'm gonna tape this together so it doesn't uncoil on us.
And then we can leave.
I love how we had an accidental audience and
That was
they're
really
watching
funny,
us
actually.
for hurts. And then we will.
Hang it somewhere? I just
Or
don't want to like bump into it. It's so loud.
right, it is. What would be great is if we had something like this, like a tripod holding it up,
I'm just.
and we could put it right here.
So good.
Right.
The
so
one.
If we had it on a tripod.
Yeah, give
right
us
here.
some feedback.
Yeah. No, everything is really good. The only thing, the theremin sounds like microphone feedback.
Okay.
So make it. I don't know if you can make it louder.
Louder?
Maybe, or something to make
Can I
it stand
try it
out
with
differently.
It closer?
Can we try it with
I think that's what I'm saying. Like closer, maybe.
Can you put the headphones
Or
on and see what it
something.
sounds like? I'll
Yeah.
try it again.
It just like.
I didn't have it very close, and it was like kind of not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that may be enough.
All right, so let's test
All the
it.
rest of the Foley was good. Again, yeah, but your mic's so hot. Also, this, the fan, so
Is that
good.
good? Okay,
The fan was great.
So good. Really,
How's this, babe?
that sounds like a helicopter.
That's good. We just have to be really careful.
I asked Sarah to come up with some do it. You want to set it up?
I don't know. People are gonna be walking back and forth.
Let's have a quick bend meeting. For the rest.
Let's just put it down here and then we'll lift it up.
So guys, I'm thinking it is 3:53 right now. I would like us to wrap up by 4:40. So we have 20 minutes to take care of ourselves. Get snacks and water, like do whatever else needs to be done by 4:40 so that we can be ready to go live right at 5.
Yeah, but what is whatever else needs to be done?
That's what we're deciding now.
Okay.
Your taxes.
So do we need this
things that
first
we need to do, I
explosion
think
anymore?
It sounds
I don't
like
think so.
we need
So
to
let's
do
put the
some sound
metal thing in
tests
here.
Okay.
with like people speaking on the mic and how it's gonna work best for us, right? Is there
Speak straight into it.
speak straight into it?
Everyone else was doing it.
There we go.
So I'll do this
What else
one.
needs to happen?
Yeah.
Fully
Perfect.
department. What else needs to happen for you guys?
We
We're-
need to test out the theremin just once
Yeah.
with someone on headphones to see what
It
it sounds
sounded a
like.
little like microphone feedback.
Okay. What needs to happen for
Yes.
you guys?
Thunder.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is ready to
And
go.
the main piece of feedback
Try
we
the
got about you
theremin.
guys is that everyone just
The other
wanted
thing is
more
these
long
plugs are
text.
super
Yes.
loose.
So you could probably take whatever you did and double it and save it. If you have start talking and I'll stop. Like that.
They were, it was falling out.
Let's, what we can do is you stop and you start. I think it's too hard for us to change it at this point. So just,
And I know,
You can just go.
I know that Andy can mute stop playing, they start talking.
Those are
But
amazing.
yeah, maybe.
I just liked how you were like, and then the fan would like slow down a little bit,
Yeah,
and
it
then
was
it's
like
really, it was really good.
Okay, so this is gonna go with the
That's hard.
Right. I wonder, could we just put a hole in the lid, and then this would fit in the hole? The lid is.
You just like be playing.
Wait, I have a question though. If in theory they could be playing, they're playing, you. Hey, real quick though. Real quick, this is if we want to do that, like while they're playing, could you mute it midway and they don't know it except it's not playing for the audience, and then once they stop,
we don't know how long they're gonna play for, and then when he mutes it, and then I'm gonna hear the piano stop playing, so there could be a
Someone's just gonna.
fade out on my set. That's okay. So it sounds like they're not just fading out and the announcer will.
If you guys want, you can just fade out. You can dampen the noise.
I would say maybe.
Where's your exacta? Where's your exacta?
Right over here.
It was great when we tested it before we started.
You could point at the speaker and be like, no, go now.
Windscreen fell apart. I think it'll work for the guitar, but not so much for the piano. Will also some background. Like I don't think we can completely, unless we use the keyboard. I think we can completely replace it.
Do you want to try and switch?
It sounded good.
So I did find
sounded awesome.
That's what was just
the windscreen fell apart. So it's a long shotgun. Point it right at the guitar.
Is that good?
Yeah, you can actually use it
I agree with you. I was just trying to get around.
So it's really directional, like that. Like the whole.
He was mentioning if the speakers would start like
Cool story
in
about
the
this
middle
mic
of
is
the
the reason it
play,
looks like a
which
lightsaber is
can't happen if you fade down. But I think
the way they edit
I
is
was
they
just offering
play a
a
control tone that's like.
maybe this is a possible solution if Andy just
All right.
used it this way.
While you're performing, like so.
But then
Oh, they have one sound to
I
it.
think that part is pretty good. We just have to like do
This kind of.
it.
Okay, you feel good?
Yeah.
You sound good.
Right.
It sounds like I stood by the speaker for a while.
I'm so
like
sorry.
burning fire style.
Yeah.
So awesome.
I think it'd be nice if we had headphones, like for iteration 2.
Yeah, the
Long
windscreen is so good.
headphones would be nice just to.
That's a really good idea.
But all of this validation makes me feel good.
I'm stoked. This is gonna be fun.
Hey,
We get a
Andy, we need to do a theremin round.
theremin test.
Theremin test.
Okay, so
Theremin test round 1.
I think.
let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Andy, you ready?
I mean, I'm wondering what proportion, because we could do a quick one through where we don't say all of our lines. That would not help fully, but it would help music, like that transition. Like, or do the players want to do
As close?
other lines to help them? Like, what do we best working on? You know what I mean? We're working on sound technique. I think the more sound you guys
Shake it.
Foley's working on sound with them. So I think we may be. That's cool. I like that.
Okay, we got it.
I like that.
I'm like, yeah. Piano. It wasn't good.
Quick powwow with anybody with lines? Quick powwow with anybody with lines? Is everybody really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Powwow!
Okay, I think we have a plan for timeline, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, timeline.
Timeline. 40 minutes.
Fully team.
Counting.
All right, anything else?
Okay.
Okay, why don't
Good high five.
everyone that is not Andy and Foley. So Kevin, Emily, and Andy, you guys are working on technical things,
We're
like sound
pretty much
things.
gonna make dinner.